My name's Joey Yates. I'm the Curatorial Director at KMAC, and I've been there for about 11 years. And KMAC's history has a lot to do with craft and the legacy of craft and materials. And a lot of the contemporary art that we show is usually led by artists frequently who are using material in sort of interesting, non-traditional ways inspired by craft or folk artists. And also, one of the things I like about your work is that as a musician, interested in improvisation and chance, there are lots of things I started to see like we could have a really cool conversation.
I really like the sort of life of the material, that it sort of has its own way of living and changing. And I think a lot of my work is about change, and it's also a lot about not having control completely over it, and then coming back and working with that.
And you also get two sides to this, whereas a canvas, you probably wouldn't get this much bleed or this much of an image on the other side of it. So you're interested in kind of three-dimensional, turning paper into sculpture. We usually think about paper as a substrate for drawing or something else, or studies or sketches. But it really does become like the focus of the work in a way, and how it kind of reveals lots of things, and we can hang it, fold it, and bend it. You do that with canvas.
Yeah, but
this does have a Sam Gilliam quality.
It does have definitely Sam Gilliam quality.
But again, he's breaking down some other language of painting that I think while you started off as a painter, I think you left even the language of expanded painting.
Yeah,
really
I early on I couldn't stay flat, and so paper and just whatever forms. It's I like all of it. I do not want to be limited to say that I'm just doing that one thing. And then I realized there was something like opening up, whether it's a plant or something, it's opening, and it's opening out to the space so that you would get able to walk around it, and it would shift. And don't forget to ask us questions. It'll make it much more fun.
That's a big contrast to, like, say, what Sam Gilliam was doing, where it really was about painting and taking painting off the canvas, and the subtext, or a lot of what he was maybe interested in, is a lot. There may not have been a lot of other thematic material on top of that, whereas you are interested in this, getting more prevalent, you just go to the show, and more like biomorphic, nature, the processes of nature, it could be skins, it could be, the fact that the color palette oftentimes can be flesh-like, or, so that might be interesting. I don't know if this is the best piece to talk about that with, but I know that that's also something that you're playing with and toying with. And we can, get to that in another part of the room. But I like that a lot of the work, and this also continues to the work, there is, despite what you may think, I think a really good conversation with painting and with abstract expressionism, or what other painters are playing with. I feel like it's back there somewhere.
It's back there somewhere.
Because there's so many instances where I think, oh my gosh, this looks like you're having a conversation with those painters. But that's just sort of my thoughts. But I know that you're not conscious of
I'm not conscious, but I don't think we're always not conscious of a lot of things we're doing.
Right. Because you've been showing art for a long time, and so you've seen a lot.
Yeah, you've seen a lot.
It's in your toolkit, and so it's going to come out.
I think that's what's been so interesting for me, because I've followed your work now for almost 30 years. And I guess it was when you were living downtown New York and in the loft and making these extraordinary machines that breathe and filling walls with these wonderful Japanese-esque drawings, experimenting with so many aspects of transformation. And I've always seen in your work an influence of a Japanese aesthetic, and I think particularly in your attention to fiber and paper and paper making. It's very much a Japanese, and not altogether, but certainly the Japanese have raised that craft to a very fine art, and the way they dye the paper, and the way they use the indigo, and the way they use subtle colors to bring to life the material itself. And I think that's part of your magic, is that you know how to take a material and certainly to make art, but to express its multidimensionality, you take it to a higher level. and we see it differently.
And even in Japanese handwriting, on the surfaces they're making it on isn't art in and of itself. I mean, the inks they're using, the papers they're using, is art itself. That is a really good connection. Yep.
Until the early 90s.
And this is probably the earliest work in this room, correct?
Yes.
And one of maybe in the show, perhaps?
It could be one. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't put dates on it.
No, that's okay. It's just, we're curious about these things
Yeah,
historically,
yeah,
and what
yeah.
what idea leads to another idea.
Yeah, because these pieces, these pods, and I called them backs, were in a show at the Bronx Museum in 1991, 2, or something like that. But different sort of lighting, and that had these. They're very pod-like.
And again, this goes back to sort of maybe the natural world, or and what I like about a lot of this work, especially the installation in there, is that I like to approach work like this. If I don't know anything about it, I think, is it something primitive, is it something old, or is it something futuristic, or is it something otherworldly? And I like that it has that really confusing quality to it, because it can.
This is that Abaca spray fiber, and this at this point in time, I had just discovered from Dudonay how to get a compressor in my place and spray fiber, and that just opened up a huge number of doors. And so it was this sort of wrapped pieces, and I was also, some of the others, I was taking the insides out with that, with the spray. This piece earlier had colored holes cut in the back of it, and with plastic tubing behind it, and there was no light down here, it was just the cords coming down. And so it was not, recently I've been going back through pieces, sort of taking some apart that I wanted to change, that I didn't really like as much. And so this was one of them, because I love the parts themselves. And so that's when I ended up with, in the last couple of years, making the cords.
A lot of the sort of post-minimalist work is going on in the 60s. They're all about process, all about chance, all about improvisation. And I think these works really speak to that interest, which has been going on for a very long time.
It's been going for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think these are really great articulations of that.
So, because I think what you're saying is that the paintings, I'm painting, but I don't have the control. I'm working on it, I'm manipulating some, but I'm letting it dry. I'm then doing something else. And, it goes somewhere, but I'm not sure where it's going. Until it gets to that point, then I think it's finished, then I'll have to live with it in order to be sure with it.
Is there, since you're not sure when it's done until it's done, are there times when this process you feel like you did too much, or you didn't do enough, and that you haven't been able to return to it, or
so far,
were all these meant to be experiments?
No, so far, when I first started with doing some like this work with the raw canvas, I needed to have 2 paintings, and so I got 6 canvases. I did do all 6, but it was interesting. I was not sure, how it was going to do, but I will stop on something and try to wait. I do have to get quieter to do this work. I just can't, sculpture you can work a little harder on, but I think just to think and sort of breathe and understand what you're trying to do.
Timothy?
Any questions?
I have a comment.
Okay.
You move so seamlessly between sculpture and painting, and I wonder if when you're creating a certain body of work, if you then get an idea to jumpstart something else. I know that there's many years between all of these, but they are very cohesive, and you are so beautifully skilled and know how to work with materials that that I wonder.
It does lead me. Materials, I have something right now in the studio that I'm working on with another sort of breathing box and everything, but the lights over here, previously with doing some of that other, definitely I realized, oh yes, that is how I can do it. Yes.
So back when you were doing these, were you also painting at that time? In the 90s?
With those, I was doing a lot of drawing, and some of the drawings that we'll see back there, and that would have been in the 90s. Yeah.
I never actually pursued like a formal painting
No.
work yet, right?
Yeah.
You took a left turn pretty quickly.
Right, I
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah.
I never thought of myself as a painter, and then when I had the show in New York, I was a painter,
Right.
you know, and I thought, oh.
What else do you call these? Yeah. Right.
And in that, there's skins and blowers, and there's fiber between those sort of very thin plastics. And it's, you know, again, things grow. Somebody was asking how it grows out. I had an installation that it had pieces on the floor and all of this, and there was a radiator. And I wanted to get rid of the radiator. So I lived next door to a sandblaster, and I got the plastic from Canal Street and sandblasted and put it over it. But then I had the box, and you know, it leads to something else. And there was also, I worked with this guy in the robotics lab at NYU a lot, and we just became very good friends. And he was the one that helped me figure the blowers, because they have 2 squirrel cage blowers, and one is blowing and one is sucking. So that is giving that breathing.
And had you used this machinery before?
It was
And other.
after, yeah, I used it later.
Oh, okay.
I mean, but I wanted these blowers to do more. And I said, you know, how can we make them work better? And so.
So is it a kind of especially fabricated blower, or is it
No.
a kind of store-bought that's been slightly?
It's store-bought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know you collaborated a lot with tech, sound-oriented people.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And this is relay switching. So all of this was fairly simple. Not high tech.
It could be a drawing or a painting or a sculpture or lots of things. And all those fronts, I think, are
So
successful.
thank you. When you were saying about painting, I was doing these works on paper, these shape paper, because I got the paper made for me at Dieudonné, and so that was painting, but it was on paper, you know. So and so I did this whole of laying landscape, and this is standing landscape. And again, I was looking very much at the atmosphere outside and water and skies.
And those are just beautiful expressions of becoming and the process of becoming art. They're really special.
So is the underlayer of these start off similar to that piece there?
They did. It's just that these were much more big drawings projected, and that these were small pieces of paper I'm working on, and using more eraser and graphite and just simpler lines and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's
These are
a beautiful process.
Yeah.
Even though these are on the wall, they're almost a sculpture because of all the different layers that you have put into it to create it. They're just lovely.
I like that idea of building.
Yeah.
Because 1982 I started it with air blowing on you at PS1, and then they went on through the 90s, mid-90s, and stopped, and then I picked this up again in 2021.
So the air player sculptures or kinetic pieces came first? And
Yeah.
then these came?
Yeah, it was on the same time.
On the same time?
You know,
So
you
do
have
you consider these sketches for the sculptures?
I consider them drawings.
Well, I mean, like references to what you would maybe eventually build.
Yeah, I just do, you know, I've been doing sculpture, I'll do drawings too. Called, you know, sketches of land and space.
Are you making your own, or are you buying it in a certain state and then changing it?
I mean, all of that happening. My mother's dying, you know, and so it was very much about skins and shedding skins and X-rays, and so yeah, it had a lot to do.
Snake skin and bull.
Yeah, just all the changes. Yeah,
And it's all just sort of.
and it's
molded
rust,
short
it's
things.
rust and wax, and you know, this is just a welded, put together, and with the rust on it. You know, that was part of it.
And were this serialized at all? Were there more of these sort of
No.
shapes? This is the only one you made? Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was when? Mid-90s? Early 90s?
early 90s.
Right, and it reminded me, I was saying, a lot of the body work people Morris and Keaton Smith were doing too at the same time. These skins, these kind of shedding, which are about illnesses and war.
This piece in here, it's, I was just saying that it's been in the process and change, and not necessarily, it's not going to stay the same. I knew what the size of the space was, and I wanted to have this sort of breathing, that you would walk through it, that your projection would be in on that, and that it all relates, that all of this sort of the work tells you of different things. And so what is here is there are blowers in each of the boxes, only one blower, and there's a mechanism that's turning it off and on, switching it, so that your air, and so it sort of blows on you, and it sort of moves moves these sort of palm-like shapes, and then I find, now I have interior lighting on the side.